Greetings and salutations, ladies and gents. Today we are going to go through every game in Week 8, except for the Chargers-Vikings game. I talked about that one at the beginning of my Week 8 preview video, so if you want to see that, go check that out. Before we get into it today, please drop a subscribe, like. If you're here from TikTok, welcome to YouTube. If you're here from YouTube, follow me on TikTok at lukefit.g. Going to be posting more stuff there all season long. I am fresh off of a homemade Philly cheesesteak and half of an ice cream sandwich. Pretty dang good. Let's dig into what we saw tonight. Full transparency, I did not watch very much of that game. I was in here filming the rest of this video. Had a pretty busy day. But it looked like for the Chiefs, everybody got to eat a little bit. Isaiah Pacheco, 12 carries, 58 yards. Looked like he got hurt late, but was seen celebrating on the sideline, so probably not that serious. But I wanted to talk more about Kansas City's pass catchers. Travis Kelce, 8 targets. Rashee Rice, 9 targets. Xavier Worthy, 7 targets. Enough for everyone to feel good about it. Rice and Kelce each had 90-plus yards and a touchdown, and Xavier Worthy had 53 yards. He's going to have better days. We're still looking for that Chiefs explosive offense. Not sure how far away we are from seeing a game like that. Just seeing a player, blow up some deep balls down the field. Haven't seen a ton of that in recent years without Tyreek Hill. I know Tyquan Thornton has had a moment or two with the deep ball, but I'm looking forward to the day where Mahomes and Worthy and Andy Reid can dial up plays to get Worthy a few go balls. Going forward, what does this mean? I mean, Rashee Rice is the top 5 guy. Everyone has kind of made him out to be. The numbers, the usage, it's all pointing to what everyone thought it would. Travis Kelce, pretty quietly having a really good year. And then Xavier Worthy, probably a guy you don't want to rely on every week, but you can do a lot worse at the flex because he does have some matchup winning upside if he, catches a long touchdown. For the Commanders, no Jaden Daniels is going to hurt just about every piece of this offense. Bill once again saw the lion's share of the touches, but Jeremy McNichols was pretty involved as a pass catching back, 6 targets, actually led the team in receptions and receiving yards. Terry McLaurin catches a touchdown. Good to see him back. He's someone you can probably plug and play as a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, regardless of whether Mariota or Daniels is playing. Then Deebo Samuel, pretty brutal game from what I saw. Caught only 3 of his 6 targets, one of which went right off his hands and turned into an interception. Only 11 yards. His wide receiver 7 start through the first 5 weeks or so is a flash in the pan, it seems like. I'm not saying he can't be effective for you going forward, but anyone who sold high after that start is probably feeling pretty good right now. Jordan Love, pretty good performance. 360 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, no picks. I think the biggest storyline, though, is the running back situation, Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson. Josh Jacobs was dealing with a calf injury the past couple of weeks. Combine that with Emmanuel Wilson actually looking effective on the ground, it doesn't make a ton of sense in a situation where you're trying to bleed the clock out. Let's not mess with Josh Jacobs' calf. Let's give him more time to heal, especially when Emmanuel Wilson is running the ball the way he is. Josh Jacobs, clearly the more talented player, still winds up scoring a touchdown for you. Still got 3 targets, catches all 3 of them, just 12 yards. I'm not moved at all in any sort of negative manner about Josh Jacobs season long. It's kind of a non-issue for me. Emmanuel Wilson, I said in a video, I think he becomes a pretty elite handcuff. If Josh Jacobs were to go down, Emmanuel Wilson would have a good bit of value in my eyes. Receiving room standpoint, Tucker Kraft, 7 grabs, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, had tons of yards after the catch, 9 targets. The past, all season, he's been the best fantasy tight end on a per target basis, and gets 9 targets. He turned it into a ton of fantasy points. Their receivers, Christian Watson comes back, gets 4 targets, turns it into 85 yards. It's going to be a who's who every week as far as which receiver does well. You're going to kind of have some tough times guessing who's going to do well. I would try to stay away, but understand there will be some good games to be had here and there, mainly between Dobbs and Watson. I feel like Golden will also like be involved for sure. Moving on to the Pittsburgh side of things, Aaron Rodgers from a fantasy standpoint and real life, like not that bad. 220 through the air, 2 touchdowns, no picks. So he got you what you needed him to there. Then Jalen Warren, an effective runner, just only had 13 carries. Kenneth Gainwell had 5 for 31, so 6 per carry, but fumbled late. Warren is the clear one there. I think he's probably around RB 18 to RB 22 rest of season value. I think Warren's going to be a piece you can use, especially with all these injuries. I don't think he might be a nice guy you can kind of throw into some trades maybe. Roman Wilson's interesting, mainly considering the fact that the Steelers' pass catchers have been pretty uninspiring so far. Aside from DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin is just a guy, like with all due respect, as far as fantasy goes. And then their tight ends are good, but neither of them is really pulling away from the other. If Roman Wilson can be the second receiver, perimeter-wise, or in the slot, doesn't really matter where he lines up, but if they can give him some more help from a receiver standpoint, I think that could unlock some stuff for this offense. And I think the most underrated part about a potential second Steelers pass catcher is this defense is not good. Like, this is not the Steelers defense we grew up used to. And because of that, like, look at the Bengals. If you have a bad defense, like, that's pretty good for fantasy offense. Look at the Cowboys. Anytime you can get talented players on teams with good offenses and bad defenses, like, all those things come together, and it's just a gold mine for fantasy success. So I would keep an eye on Roman Wilson. I would have him as like a speculative ad. And at this point, I have no problem buying DK Metcalf at wide receiver 2 prices. I think this will probably be a trend that continues. Next game, let's go to the Titans and Colts. And we have to do a little post week 8 glaze session of Jonathan Taylor. He deserves it. 12 carries, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Adds in a third touchdown through the air. 22 catches, 21 yards, and a touchdown. Dude is like, the dude is going to break records. Like, he already is. I'm pulling up numbers right now. He's averaging 27 fantasy points per game in PPR. If we were to take everyone in the league right now, he's averaging 27.1 points per game. Christian McCaffrey, 24.6. Bijan, 21.6. Gibbs, 20. So he's averaging a full 2.5 points more per game than Christian McCaffrey. He's averaging about 5.5 points more per game than Bijan Robinson. And he's averaging 7 more points per game on a weekly basis than Jahmyr Gibbs. And that's just the elite guys. Like, thinking about some guys who were drafted in a similar range, like Saquon Barkley, even after this most recent week, he's averaging 16 fantasy points per game. Again, Jonathan Taylor, 27.1. Just an insane run for him. No pun intended. For the Colts receivers, Michael Pittman, like, he seems like he's just, like, gonna be legit. Like, as long as the quarterback play is solid and Daniel Jones is playing really good football right now. How do the Giants fans feel about that? I haven't talked to any. If you're watching this and you're a Giants fan, give me your take in the comments. If we're looking season long, main leaders other than Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce and Josh Downs are both tied with an 18% target share. If we want to look at the last handful of weeks, weeks 5 through 8, Alec Pierce is getting more targets than Josh Downs. His average depth of target is insane the past few weeks. 24 yards downfield. He's getting a ton of air yards, but Josh Downs is getting a good bit of end zone targets. Scored a touchdown this past week. I don't really have a great way of differentiating. Like, Michael Pittman is the clear top dog, and then Tyler Warren is a clear top 5 tight end. After that, you can get away with starting Pierce and Downs, but they're not guys that you want to rely on weekly, in my mind. Let's flip over to Tennessee. And I've always been a big Tyjae Spears guy. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. If you started him last year in the fantasy playoffs, which I was down bad, I had to, he came through for you. And then I fired him up in my lineup this week because I was dealing with so many injuries in my home dynasty league, which I've been going since 2014, and he ended up scoring like 15 fantasy points for you. He had 9 carries, 59 yards. Part of that included a 41-yard rushing rush that was almost a touchdown. And then through the air, he got 3 targets, 23 yards, caught all 3 of those. So he's a guy I think should be rostered everywhere. I am not sure what to think of him week to week. I'm probably going to fire him up because I think he's a player where if he gets 10 to 15 touches, he's going to score 8 plus fantasy points. And some of your teams, like, you just want a guy who can do that. Like, maybe, yeah, obviously you prefer someone who's going to score 15 to 20. But if I can get a guy who I think is going to get at least 12 touches, and I know he's a really efficient player on a per touch basis, that's valuable to me. As like a flex, I don't want to rely on him as one of my top 2 running backs, but I'm a big Tyjae Spears guy. Tony Pollard, I think, is a prime trade candidate. If he does get traded, you would have to bump up Spears and Pollard, and I think Pollard would have more room for growth in some rankings because, like, Tyjae Spears, for as fun as he is to watch and as talented of a player as he is, he's in this Titans offense, which is extremely capped from a scoring standpoint. Like, he's touchdowns are going to be few and far between. Tony Pollard, if he goes to a team that needs running back help, I don't know what team that could possibly be. I'm looking at a list of teams right now. Like, if he were to go to, I'm still looking at all these teams. I don't know, man. Where could Tony Pollard even go that where they would need him? To the Vikings? Do the Vikings need a back? I don't know if he's that much better than Jordan Mason or Aaron Jones. The Bears. DeAndre Swift's playing well. The Chiefs. Like, if Tony Pollard was on the Chiefs, I think he'd have a lot of value there. Tony Pollard on the Chargers would have a ton of value and would still have value even when Omarion Hampton came back. Tony Pollard to the Cardinals would have a good bit of value, I would think. Tony Pollard to the Patriots would have a good bit of value. To the Giants, do they make a move for a running back or are they content with Tyrone Tracy? I think there are some options there. And then from a receiving standpoint, Chimere DK, yeah, cool. 7 grabs, 93 yards, great game. He's actually kind of heating up here recently, the past few weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Looks like, yeah, back-to-back games with 70-plus receiving yards. Had a touchdown in one of those games, so good for him. He's getting on the field more. His snap share is increasing. Definitely interesting guy in Dynasty. For redraft, I think there will be usable weeks out of this receiving room, but not enough to trust week to week. I think Calvin Ridley is also a trade candidate if he comes back healthy and is able to pass some physicals. I think he could be someone who gets traded to someone like a Pittsburgh, maybe like a New England if they just want to pick up another capable guy. They don't want to pay up to go get A.J. Brown, which has been a rumor that's been circulating recently. All right, Broncos, Cowboys. I want to focus a little bit on the Denver rushing attack. If you remove weeks 1 and 2, R.J. Harvey is actually the RB20 on the season. Now, he's doing that on a pretty unsustainable run of touchdowns. This season, he has 5 touchdowns and 62 touches. So he's scoring every 12 touches. That doesn't seem very sustainable to me. He does get involvement in the passing game. He only had 3 targets the past 2 weeks total, but before that he was averaging like 3.5 targets a game. 7 carries against the Cowboys was his second highest total of the season. Breaks off a 40-yard touchdown run. The reason I liked RJ Harvey, as a buy, like kind of a lottery ticket buy and stash, is he has the upside. He has the belief from his head coach, and he has a running back ahead of him who has a long track record of getting injured. And J.K. Dobbins, as long as he's playing in this offense, they like to lean on the run, make it easy on Bo Nix. Like, Dobbins is going to produce. However, if he goes down, RJ Harvey would be an immediate top 20 play in my book. you might be able to get someone willing to sell high, or sell high, quote unquote, like get off of RJ Harvey while he's had this recent value. Again, you're not buying him expecting him to provide instant value to your lineup, but you're buying him with the anticipation of maybe not wishing for an injury, but if J.K. Dobbins were to go down, like all of a sudden you got yourself really good value there. I wouldn't give up RB2 value to get him. I would give up a guy who may be outperforming expectations a little bit. Like if I was deep at receiver and I had Troy Franklin, I would swap Troy Franklin for RJ Harvey without thinking twice about it. If I had two good tight ends, I would trade one of them for RJ Harvey because I'm not starting both of them every week. Their receivers, Cortland Sutton dropped a touchdown. No, it was Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton had a touchdown called back due to an offensive penalty, and then the next play he dropped the touchdown. So it doesn't wind up helping you very much in week 8, but still winds up with a decent enough day. 4 catches, 67 yards, double digit, pretty high floor in PPR leagues. Troy Franklin, obviously the story of the day. If we're looking at season long now, Troy Franklin's target share is up to 20%. Cortland Sutton's is at 22%. Sutton's still the top dog there, but Franklin will have his days here and there. Again, just going to kind of be a guy who is a little difficult to trust on a week-to-week basis, pulling up his game log. He does have 18 targets the past 2 weeks. So if we're going from week 1 on, he had 6 targets, 9, 4, 8, 5, 4. There was no bye. That was, okay, London games against the Jets. And then the past 2 weeks, he had 10 against the Giants, only caught 3 of them. And then he had 8 against the Cowboys, caught 6 of them. So maybe his involvement is on an upward trend. Maybe that continues a little bit. Keep an eye on that. But Sutton's still the guy I want. Cowboys, I think the biggest bummer is Jake Ferguson, but this was kind of to be expected when CeeDee Lamb came back. If we want to pull up, that's the Colts. I'm looking for the Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? If we want to go weeks 1 through 2, Ferguson had a 22% target share. CD goes down, I believe, in week 3, and then weeks 3 through 6, Ferguson had a 24% target share. And then the past 2 weeks, that target share is down to 13% with CD back. So I still think you're firing him up as a locked and loaded tight end 1 every week, even with the goose egg. He still ranks as the fantasy tight end 1. Is that true? Is Tucker Kraft number 2? Tucker Kraft's averaging 16.2 PPR points per game, and Ferguson's averaging 15. So Tucker Kraft is the tight end 1 for all intents and purposes right now. Javonte Williams gets 2 rushing touchdowns. Not a great day, but this is a really tough Denver defense on the road. Just chalk it up to a tough matchup and move on to the next one. Buccaneers and Saints. The Buccaneers are heading into a bye. Really disappointing day from Rachaad White. 2.7 yards per carry, had 3 carries from the 1, didn't punch it in. Sean Tucker winds up scoring a touchdown. From a receiving standpoint, Tez Johnson's the clear number 2, Emeka Egbuka number 1. When Godwin comes back, I think he's going to have some viability there. Rachaad White, we don't know when Bucky Irving's going to come back, and because of that, I'm still high on Rachaad White, at least as a plug-and-play guy until Bucky comes back. I don't think this is going to turn into something where it's more of an even split with Sean Tucker. They were up. Tampa Bay was for the majority of this game. So I don't think this is something where Rachaad White, is in the doghouse at all. Let's see if I can get this chair up. Goodness gracious. It shouldn't be that difficult. Rachaad White's still a guy I like, even through the bye. Kind of a bummer when that happens, but whatever. And then Emeka Egbuka, let's take a look at his numbers here from a receiver standpoint the past couple weeks. Season long, he's averaging 87% of their routes, 24% of their targets. And then the last couple weeks when he's struggled, 27% of the routes, 25% of the targets. 37% of the air yards, which is the same exact number he was getting weeks 1 through 6. So I'm not worried about Emeka Egbuka. I just think anytime you have a guy who starts off that hot, there will be some regression. We're just in the midst of that right now. I still think he's a low end wide receiver one, high end wide receiver two. I think he's pretty comparable to Jalen Waddle from a production standpoint. I would actually be curious to see over the past 4 weeks how close is Jalen Waddle to Emeka Egbuka. I would actually be really curious in seeing that. Over the past 4 weeks, let me see. Jalen Waddle's averaging 15.6 and Egbuka's averaging 13. During that span, Jalen Waddle is the wide receiver 9 and Egbuka is the wide receiver 16. So I feel like that's a fair comp as far as production goes. For the Saints, Spencer Rattler gets benched for Tyler Shuck. Shuck doesn't look great, throws a pick. Spencer Rattler threw a pick 6, got stiff-armed into the turf on the defender's way to the end zone. Alvin Kamara, just 8 opportunities, 50 targets up for grabs, only got 2 of them. No other running backs got a rush, so that's encouraging. Kamara, tomato. At this point, I'm obviously not dropping him, and I'm not necessarily trying to sell him. More so, like, when I'm putting him in my lineup, I'm kind of holding my breath. He really hasn't given you that much to be excited about, but you can't get anything for him if you try to trade him. Pulling up his game log here. I mean, just loss. Just hasn't gotten the targets, man. Just 27 targets now through 8 games. Averaging only 5.4 yards per catch. 1 touchdown all season long. I don't know. I'm holding on to Alvin Kamara, but it's kind of discouraging. I hate seeing one of the great fantasy assets of our generation kind of fade off like this. Texans 49ers. Christian McCaffrey had a bad game. Not very efficient on the ground. He hasn't really been all year, but did not get the volume through the air. Still got 6 targets. Only one person got more. Jawan Jennings got 7. Obviously, like, this is just a bad game. You don't think anything of it. We just move on. So let's move on. Jawan Jennings, 7 targets, 4 grabs, 45 yards. Not necessarily inspiring. Kendrick Bourne, 4 targets, 44 yards on 3 grabs. George Kittle had 5 targets, grabbed 4 of them, scored a touchdown, 43 yards. That's what we're wanting to see from George Kittle, and honestly, that should kind of be a floor. I guess we're feeling a lot different if he doesn't score a touchdown, but 14 PPR points, we'll take that. Second game back from injury. I do expect his target share to grow a little bit. I know first week he was a 16% target share, 8% target share, 2 targets. That doubled this week. He got 5 targets, up to a 16% share. And then for the Texans, Woody Marks looks pretty dang good. For an offense that hasn't been moving the ball very well over the course of the season, but the past few weeks against the Ravens, and they had the bye. I guess, are they on a little winning streak right now? They beat the Titans, the Ravens had a bye, and then they just beat the 49ers. So they were 0-4, and they've rattled off 3 in a row. Nick Chubb still involved. Not a great efficiency back right now, but if you're trying to churn out a few yards and keep the clock moving, and you just need a guy to eat up 5-10 carries when you're leading, Nick Chubb is going to be that guy. I would still rather have Woody Marks. Nick Chubb has a purpose. He serves for real-life football. But Woody Marks is definitely the better fantasy back. He also hauled in a 50-yard. This is funny. Woody Marks had 4 catches for 49 yards, but his longest catch was 50 yards. So he had the 50-yard reception, and then his other 3 catches combined to lose 1 yard. This receiving room is a mess. Xavier Hutchinson, 5 of 6 targets are grabbed for 69 yards. Very nice. And a touchdown. Jalen Knoll, 5 catches, 63 yards. So anytime you can have, and Jaden Higgins, 34 yards and a touchdown, 8 targets for him. He led the team. Anytime you can have like two rookie receivers step up in Nico Collins' absence and you get a win against a good 49ers team, a great win for the Texans there. I'm still high on Nico Collins. I think he'll figure it out. Obviously, a rough start. Obviously, not what you signed up for when you drafted him at the beginning of the second round. But, like, what are you going to do? You kind of just got to keep it pushing. On a per game basis, he's wide receiver 29, which is not what you signed up for. But, again, he's got the talent. The offense isn't great, but he's got the opportunity and the talent. I'm still going to ride with Nico Collins. Bears and Ravens. Caleb Williams, not great. 25 of 38, 285, no tutties, a pick, took one sack. Running backs, DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monunga. We've been looking at this split a little bit. Swift winds up averaging 4 yards a carry, just only had 11 of them. Scores a touchdown. And then Kyle Monunga, 7 for 24. I think Swift is going to continue to be the lead guy here. I guess Roshan Johnson, not part of their plans, or maybe he's been hurt. Have not been dialed in there. Roma Dunze, a couple stinkers back to back, but showed you why he should be valued as a low end wide receiver one. Like similar in the Emeka Egbuka range, 7 grabs, a $114 through the air, 10 targets. DJ Moore had a nice day, turned 7 targets into 4 catches and 73 yards. Colson Loveland had been out targeting Cole Kmet the past 2 weeks. This week, Cole Kmet is out. Not a boom game by any means for Colston Loveland, but I think he is going to become a tight end we can start to maybe not take more seriously, but take more chances on, I guess. And then for the Ravens, just really exciting to see how this team kind of just comes together once Lamar Jackson comes back. Listen to the Ravens' schedule coming up. They have the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Browns, 3 games all on the road. But then they have 3 straight games at home, the Jets, the Bengals, and the Steelers. If they win 4 of those games and lose 2, if they go 4-2, they're sitting at 6-7. Please spare me with the 6-7. If they go 5-1, they would be 7-6. So I think either of those opportunities are possible. Even if they go 3-3, they're sitting at 5-8, which I guess, let me take that back. But with the Bengals losing, with the Steelers losing, with this week's schedule coming up, I'm bullish on all Baltimore Ravens fantasy relevant players. Like when I say that, I mean obviously Lamar, but I mean Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers are the main 2 I'm thinking of. Like, I think all those guys are going to see a little bit of an uptick in production and thus value. On the Ravens side of things, Derrick Henry, 3.4 yards per carry, but again, 21 carries, 2 touchdowns. And then from a receiving standpoint, Zay Flowers is the guy, 9 targets, catches 7 of them for 63 yards. His floor has been really nice. Mark Andrews, a tight end 2 at this point, probably shouldn't be started. Might not even be able to justify rostering him at this point. I would be comfortable dropping him in a redraft league. I'm just not. I would rather stash a Tyrone Tracy or Tyjae Spears and shoot for upside, or even a Christian Watson. I don't think Mark Andrews should be rostered. Maybe he's not. I'm a little out of touch with stuff like that. Da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na. The Bills had one of their classic blowout victories, and that bodes pretty well for James Cook. 19 carries, 216 on the ground, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, as long as the Bills are in games like this where they're ahead and they're scoring at will, like James Cook is going to have a ton of value. Kind of crazy. James Cook could have had an even better day because Josh Allen took away 2 rushing touchdowns himself. Cook was kind of worrying people for a little bit there, but now if we're looking at fantasy points per game, he's right back up to where he was supposed to be, RB5 on a point per game basis. I think he's ranked RB7 overall. So just excellent start from him. From the receiving options, Khalil Shakir, 6 grabs, 88 yards, scores a 54-yard touchdown, 7 targets. Keon Coleman remains like my biggest L of the year. I told you to buy high on Keon Coleman, I thought I just lost sight of the fact that the Bills are going to be in a lot of blowouts and like Josh Allen threw. Josh Allen didn't even throw 20 passes today. I think it's like the second or third time he's had less than 20 pass attempts. He had 22 against the Saints and now 19 against the Panthers. So just not a ton of volume up for grabs there. Khalil Shakir is the guy you want. In Dynasty, I still like Keon Coleman. He's still, I think, just 22 years old. I'm not giving up on him as an asset long term, but I would even wouldn't hate dropping Keon Coleman if there's someone on waivers you feel more confident in on a weekly basis. I'm not advocating to drop Keon Coleman, but there's no situation where I'm starting him and feeling good about it. For Carolina, Andy Dalton with one of the roughest backup games you'll see. Just was getting sacked like crazy, couldn't generate anything, fumbling the football. He fumbled twice, lost both of them. ESPN says he lost 2 and recovered 1, so I'm not sure how that works. Rico Dowdle, 6.8 yards per carry, only gets the ball 8 times. Chuba, 12 for 34 and a touchdown. Dave Canales came out today. I don't want to misquote him. I know it was something along the lines of Chuba's meant a lot to this team, and we wanted to give him a really good opportunity after coming back from a calf injury, but we can't ignore what Rico Dowdle's doing. Like, essentially, Chuba, we love you. You're really important to us, but Rico Dowdle's better than you right now. That's kind of how I read that. I didn't hear him say it. A lot can get misconstrued over text. I would not be surprised to see this start to go in Rico's direction, but they're not going to go away from Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard would be, for me, right back in the top 15, 20 conversation if he were to get traded. I just don't think they can trade him, giving him that contract. They'd have to eat a lot of money, I would imagine. I'm not a cap expert. Need to become more well-versed on stuff like that. I think that stuff's super interesting. Ted McMillan, one of my other biggest misses, and I'm in 15 Dynasty leagues, and in none of them did I walk away with Ted McMillan. I faded him. In every league I had a chance to get him, I didn't get him. I would either grab Tyler Warren or Quinshon Judkins or Omarion. Well, Omarion Hampton was going before him, but you get what I'm saying. And those ended up being solid picks, but Ted McMillan, I wish I had a single share, and I do not. 10 targets, 7 grabs, 99 yards. I still think you can go buy him. Honestly, in Dynasty, he's a guy that I want to go buy and pay up for before his price gets crazy expensive. Like, I have no issue going and buying Ted. Other than him, there's no one I'm really interested in here for Carolina. Eagles and Giants. Obviously, horrible news and a very gruesome injury for Cam Scatterbo. Seriously, prayers up, speedy recovery. Hate seeing anyone get hurt, especially like that. I just had an MRI this morning on my foot. Try to keep y'all updated on that. So I want to do some running takes. I want to do some takes while I'm running. I just haven't ran since July 14th. Big bummer. But speedy recovery. Not trying to make it about me. Just trying to connect with y'all. Tyrone Tracy becomes a pretty interesting pickup. If I'm going to go back to last year, let's go back to 2024 and look at running backs. Let's go per game basis. Tyrone Tracy, I want to say, was a top 20 guy on a per game basis. I lied. He was not a top 20 guy on a per game basis. He averaged 10 PPR points per game, which was RB 28 total. Wound up with 839 yards on the ground, so pretty dang impressive. 6 touchdowns total, but the issue is he had 5 fumbles, including one at the end of the game, if you remember, against the Panthers out in London or somewhere overseas. Tyrone Tracy has a really big opportunity right here to prove he can be the guy. And when you have a rushing quarterback like Jackson Dart, that kind of opens things up for the rest of your offense. For the Giants receivers, Wan'Dale Robinson's the only guy I'm interested in as my second flex. If I'm in a 2-flex league, sure, I'll fire him up and cross my fingers. If you're in a deep league that starts more than that, you kind of probably have to start him. But he's not someone I'm looking forward to starting. Just someone who should be rostered, but someone I'm not expecting too much from. I guess his like he's been involved, but he just not doesn't have upside that I want if I'm kind of throwing a dart throw out there. Like most weeks, I would rather start Jameson Williams than Wandale Robinson, even though JMO's put up some real stinkers. He at least has some high end upside, and I know Wandale's had his fair share of good games this year too. I just think those are probably more close to anomalies than they are like something that can be replicated consistently. Darius Slayton's a player I've always liked. I'm not sure if you remember or not, but he had 8 touchdowns and like 750 yards his rookie year. Obviously, that did not keep up. Offensive pass interference, he had called back a really long touchdown. I thought that was pretty weak. But these things happen. Touchdowns get called back all the time. Darius Slayton would be the only other guy. Theo Johnson, tight end landscape is gross, but I think at this point, if you don't have one of the better tight ends in the league, like if you're not rolling with Laporta or Bowers when he's healthy, or McBride or Kraft or Kittle, like you shouldn't be rostering multiple tight ends. You should be freeing up that roster space for high upside players, and you should just be streaming tight ends every week. Odds are there are multiple streaming tight ends available in your league on waivers. For Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts having a really good stretch here the past couple games against the Giants and the Vikings. Past couple weeks, he has completed 34 of 43 passes, 500 yards, 7 touchdowns, 0 picks. That's a pretty dang good stretch. Taking care of the football, he's thrown 15 touchdowns and 1 pick all year long. So very quietly, all of a sudden, like I haven't heard much Jalen Hurts slander the past couple weeks, and like this is exactly why. And that's without AJ Brown. No one was whining and complaining about the ball. Philly got 276 yards on the ground. Devontae Smith got his. Dallas Goedert scores twice again. Saquon Barkley caught a touchdown pass. Do the Eagles look at this and like entertain AJ Brown trade talks? Not saying they should do it, but do they entertain it? I don't know. I truly think we can fire up the Drake May MVP talks. He has 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, added 250 rushing yards on the ground. And he's doing this with a supporting cast that like I think we can call average at best. And that might be a little generous calling them average. Mac Hollins was his leading receiver today. Kayshon Bouttys had a nice year. Stephon Diggs scored his first touchdown but only had 14 receiving yards. Hunter Henry, 1 grab, 7 yards and a touchdown. Like Drake May is the engine of this thing, and it's like leading to insane dividends for fantasy. Travion Henderson, really encouraging sign, even with the late fumble. We all know Vrabel doesn't seem to. I'm sure he cares, but he's not penalizing fumbles, or at least not for what common people like you and I can see. So Travion Henderson, kind of in a similar vein to RJ Harvey, is like a lottery ticket stash where you're hoping it turns into something, but not relying on it. Ramondre Stevenson, really rough day on the ground, but this Cleveland Browns front is really, really tough. And the Patriots schedule is pretty dang easy. Here's our schedule coming up. Falcons, Buccaneers, so 2 solid run defenses. Then they got the Jets, then they got the Bengals, then they got the Giants. And then to end the season, they have the Jets, and the Dolphins. So I'm more excited about Travion Henderson. I'm not. I guess I'm still excited about Diggs, but kind of tempering expectations a little bit. The Browns do have a tough defense, but May's just kind of spraying the ball around to whoever's open, and no one's really emerging as a go-to guy, at least through 8 weeks, and we're halfway through the season. So the Browns, Quinshon Judkins got hurt. Keep an eye on that. And then from a receiving standpoint, if it's not a tight end or a running back, Dylan Gabriel probably is not throwing the ball. Jerry Jeudy was getting solid volume leading into this week. One of those games was with Dylan Gabriel at quarterback. I'm not throwing him to the Wolves just yet, but I'm definitely not putting him in my lineup. I do think the Browns are bad enough and Judy is good enough to where if he gets the volume in those game scripts, he's going to have some big games. Just can't count on that right now with Dylan Gabriel leading the offense. It's looked pretty bad. And I think it's been back-to-back weeks now under 5 yards per attempt for him, which is insanely low. Okay, so 3 weeks as a starter, 4.3 yards per attempt against the Steelers, 6.4 against the Dolphins, 4.5 against the Patriots. In that span, 3 games, he's thrown 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. Haven't been super dialed into any headlines since the games, but Zach Taylor's probably got to be feeling a little bit of pressure. I get it. You don't have your starting quarterback, but that has nothing to do with the New York Jets scoring 23 points in the fourth quarter. The Jets had scored 23 points in only 2 games coming into week 8, and they scored 23 in the fourth quarter against the Bengals. Big day for Justin Fields, at least from like a personal mental standpoint. 30 yards on the ground, 244 through the air, and 1 touchdown. Breece Hall with a monster day, including a passing touchdown. I think Breece Hall is someone who I've had a few people ask me, should I trade him after this? I'm not big on sending out guys who others in general aren't very high on. Like Breece Hall is averaging 14 PPR points per game. On a points per game basis, what is that? Breece Hall, he's a top 15 running back on the season. I'm just like, what are you getting for him that's going to give you that value? I don't think anyone is giving you top 15 running back value, like someone who's going to score 14 points a week. I just don't think you're going to get that back from Breece Hall. So he's a guy I would buy because I think you can get him fairly cheap. He's not a guy I would trade unless his perception among your league mates is pretty high. But that's the only way I'm doing that trade. From a receiver standpoint, got to be patient and wait for Garrett Wilson to come back. And then Mason Taylor, similar to Jawan Johnson, right? Jawan Johnson had a few really good weeks in terms of target share and then 3 really bad weeks. And then now he's had 2 straight good weeks in a row. I think that might be a similar situation here with Mason Taylor. Target share was getting greater and greater as the season progressed. Then it cratered, and then now it's coming back up a little bit. Was that his first touchdown of his career that he scored? I think it was. Yeah, it was. So might have some positive touchdown regression coming. Solid rookie year for a tight end, already up to 29 grabs. Bengals, fantasy goldmine. Really wish T. Higgins got some more looks here. I think he will have better games ahead and could have had a really awesome game today, but Joe Flacco's just like tunnel vision, laser focus on getting Jamar Chase the ball, and honestly, I can't blame him. I think Joe Flacco is like, what is he the past 2 weeks? I know they've played terrible defenses, but he's got to be a top 5 quarterback the past couple of weeks, right? Yeah, he's the QB4 the past 2 weeks, averaging 25 fantasy points per game during that span. I want to touch on the running backs really quick. I'm buying Chase Brown if anyone's selling and afraid of Samaje Perine. Like, Chase Brown is finally starting to put it together. He is back up to RB5 the past 2 weeks. And if we're looking at a season-long total, it's not great, but it probably isn't as bad as you think. He's RB18. He's a low-end RB2. But I think he's being sold for cheaper than that still. I think people have like kind of PTSD from the start of the season, and now that he's had a couple of good games, they want to get out, like get off the roller coaster. Like, I want on. Matchups coming up. They play the Steelers again. They play the Bears. The Bills have been easy to run on. You got same with the Ravens. You got you got the Dolphins. You got the Cardinals during the championship week. And I don't want to talk on the Cardinals like I know their defensive rush stats off rip, like off the top of my head. The bottom line is Chase Brown is a guy that I would be looking to buy if I can get him for wide receiver 3, RB3 price. Like, I think he's going to return mid-end RB2 volume, but I think there is a chance it's even better than that, just with how many points the Bengals are going to have to score to stay in games. Dolphins and the Falcons, maybe the most surprising result in a week that had a ton of blowouts. Tua kind of got motivated, I guess, hearing Mike McDaniel throw some shots in press conferences. 20 of 26, 4 touchdowns. Devon Achane remains the most consistent asset in fantasy football. Is that crazy to say? It doesn't matter what the game script is. He's going to have like 4 to 5 catches. He's going to average 5 to 6 yards per touch. And any given game, he can break off multiple 40-plus yard touchdowns. Like he's 23 years old. He is a elite dynasty asset. He was the dynasty RB3 for me heading into the season. And now that I think that most people would probably agree with me, like I wish I would have gone and like paid up for him and bought him in dynasty leagues. But it's going to be much harder to do that now, I think. Maybe some people wish he would perform more. I don't know. What do you guys think about Devon Achane? Ollie Gordon, best game of his career. Jalen Waddle, another guy who's just rock solid. I wish I had more shares. I regrettably only have 2 in my 15 leagues. He had 6 grabs, 99 yards, and a touchdown. Malik Washington I like as a decent dynasty guy, 36 yards and a touchdown. For the Falcons, we thought that no Drake London would lead to a monster Darnell Mooney day. Same for Bijan Robinson. Neither of those happened. Kirk Cousins, not much going for him. Pretty rough day overall for the Falcons. I think we just chalk this one up to a massive L and move on. But Kyle Pitts, having a pretty good year. 9 targets, 9 catches, 59 yards through the air. And then where does he rank right now among all tight ends? Tight end 9 on a points per game basis. Gotta feel pretty good about that. Top 10 tight end Kyle Pitts. We've been waiting for this. That's all I got for you guys right now. Again, if you made it this far, thank you for supporting my content. Please drop a subscribe and like the video to help me out. I would really appreciate it. Don't want you to miss any more stuff. I'm going to try to start doing some weekly preview and weekly recaps here on YouTube. Eventually start dabbling and doing some more live stuff. Again, thank you for watching my content. I really appreciate it, and I will see you very soon. That's it for now. Deuces.